listening to the Wandering Womb podcast with Jess and Jaimi. Strong women, strong drinks, strong views, and strong language.
Oh, there we go. Another special jingle.
I kind of wish we could hear it.
Yeah, just so that everyone knows, when we play the jingle, we can't actually hear it. Maybe we should get headphones or something, but I think I would just cringe every time.
I've seen the faces you pull when that jingle... to be honest with you, I feel now that maybe we got the wrong jingle. If every time the jingle plays, you're like, oh my God, that's cringy as fuck, then that's not the right jingle.
Well, I think it's just the next bit where she says strong women, all that, it's just a bit drawn out, innit? I mean, it's supposed to feel like, yeah, all right, hurry up, come on.
We get it, it's all strong.
Yeah, and she says it quite slow, so yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. But, you know, we can all laugh about it together as one big clitorati. Okay, so welcome back if you have just listened to a previous episode. I know that some people listen to them in succession, is that the right word, of each other. We decided to release this part 2 of the Sexy But Psycho interview episodes a few days after the first one. So, yeah, I'm excited to continue with these.
Listen, I've really enjoyed it, talking to you about it.
Yeah. When we finished, what was it you said to me?
What?
About why you like... What was it you said?
I don't know, I said that, like, I really love doing this with you.
Yeah.
And that you know loads about it. Feels like talking to myself about it. It just goes to show how much I must rabbit on at you about it for you to have picked up so much knowledge of it. You may as well have written this book.
Well, I've read it. So...
Yeah. There is that, yeah.
So before we start, I'm going to do like just an extra sort of shout out to go and buy it. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it from WH Smith, you can get it from Waterstones, you can get it from Blackwell's. The links are in Jess's bio on all social media accounts. And just a reminder that if we can get it, if you can order it, pre-order it, or order it in the first week of it being out, we have a really strong chance of being a Sunday Times bestseller.
Yep. So that means that as you're listening to this right now, it's being released. This particular one will be released Sunday.
Yeah.
So you should be listening to this on Sunday, and if not, why are you late? So any time between Sunday and around the 10th to the 12th of March, if you buy the book then, it goes towards it becoming a Sunday Times bestseller.
Yeah.
Me and Jamie are still learning about this because we didn't know anything about this, did we?
No.
Until recently, and we're trying to figure it all out. So the point of it being a Sunday Times bestseller is that people can't ignore me.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a Sunday Times bestseller, what are people going to say, really? They're going to be like, oh, it's a shit book. Well, it's not, is it? Or like, oh, you know, she's just a woman, a feminist ranting. Well, clearly not, though. You know, so I can get rid of a lot of the, I don't know, like the main criticisms that it's like completely irrelevant and a load of shit.
Yeah. So there's quite a few of you listen to this every week and every episode.
Quite a few being several thousand, by the way.
But I guess the reason that we've decided to talk about this on this podcast, and we've not spoken about it publicly, we've not spoken about it.
I've not been allowed.
And know about
so
the Sunday
annoying.
Times thing.
Oh yeah,
is because it sort of feels like the listeners are like a little family.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of us, so you know, power in numbers. And
I feel safe talking to our listeners about stuff because, like, me and you talk to our podcast listeners about all sorts of like private and personal stuff, and you can and it never goes anywhere.
No,
like people don't like bring it up or use it against us or write massive blogs about it or whatever.
No.
Whereas if I put something on Twitter, people don't shut up about it.
No.
So yeah, this is, I don't know, just nice, isn't it?
Just listen to this though. This is the book. I'm holding the book. Ooh.
As Jaimi has shown, very good for percussion. If you don't like reading, you could it's hard. You can hit things with it. You can hit it. You can knock on it like Jamie's knocking on it.
It just feels nice, and then just listen to the pages. And then I'm just gonna smell it.
Smell it.
Oh my god, it feels like I'm in a really quiet library. Oh, the smell. I would, if they could bottle that smell up and turn it into a perfume, I would wear that.
Would you?
Absolutely. Or I'd just spray every room with it. Oh my god, they need to make... Right, Yankee Candle, if you listen to this, or any, like, Febreze, I don't care who you are, you need to find what books smell like and turn it into an air freshener. Oh, it smells so good. Oh, that's such a calming smell.
So if you don't like the content of Sexy But Psycho, you can just sniff it.
Yeah, and it's it's really sniffable. And then also, if you can't read, get the audiobook.
Yeah, but you can't sniff the audiobook.
No, but sniff the book whilst you listen to the audiobook. That's my great advice.
Close your eyes, sniff the book, listen to me narrate the book.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm narrating the audible version, or however you explain it. Okay, shall we do part 2?
Yes, so part 2, I think we've saved some of the, I guess some of the juicier stuff, but then also some of the more, I'll use the phrase hard hitting.
Heavy is the word I would use.
Yeah, some of the heavy stuff. So, really, really interesting. What we're going to be talking about in this episode, but you know, I guess look after yourself and
yeah,
be,
for sure.
Yeah, if you can't listen, then that's fine. But then also, you know, I don't know how this podcast is going to go. We might end up laughing all the way through it. We might end up crying all the way through it.
You never really know, do you? With me and you?
No, you never know. I think that might be a
got a mental
psychiatric.
disorder.
Yeah, that might be. Okay. So, I guess to recap on the last episode, for those who have listened to it several days ago or you know, a bit apart, in the last episode we sort of caught up about why Jess decided to write the book, why it's called what it's called, about the history of psychiatry, about the myths of the chemical imbalance theory, which is no longer accepted as a theory at all. There's no such thing as a chemical imbalance in the brain. And we also spoke about medication and psychiatric medication, what that actually is, how ineffective it actually is, and how it performs against a placebo, which it doesn't perform any different against a placebo. So in this episode, I'm going to actually start by asking you about some of the case studies and some of the things that you talk about in the book that are particularly notable. So I imagine a lot of you, if not all of you, listening to this will know about Dignitas, which is like assisted suicide in, is it Sweden? Switzerland. In Switzerland. And about how mental health is being incorporated into that. Do you want to expand a bit on that and give your opinions on it and your sort of expertise and knowledge?
I think I will start off by saying that I do have concerns about assisted suicide and companies like Dignitas.
Yeah.
But I'm generally not opposed to it. You know, I think that if somebody is terminally ill and they don't want to live it out and, you know, they've had enough and they've got capacity of mind and so on, then I don't particularly have any issue with it at all. I do have an... Sorry, we're tired. I do have an issue with... It does worry me, though, that, you know, what about, like, victims of abuse? What about women that are being abused by their husbands and sort of, like, being made to feel like they're a burden and stuff and they're ill?
Or their families.
Yeah, and their families, right.
Their younger families.
Anyway, that's going off a little bit off track, but I just wanted to say that to begin with. So
That's an issue...
Even with the medical reasons, you know, like sort of terminal cancer
across the board,
and MS and stuff. Okay, so specifically in Sexy But Psycho, it was one of the hardest chapters I wrote, wasn't it? I was really upset. You were really upset.
Yeah, we both cried whilst you were writing that bit.
Yeah, because it's so fucking, like, shocking to think that young women, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, are being given an option in Switzerland or anywhere in the world if you can get yourself to Dignitas. You know, you're being given this option to kill yourself and use assisted suicide at Dignitas if you have psychiatric diagnoses, because the thing is, technically a psychiatric diagnosis is for life. People don't realise that when they're given it by a doctor. There's not a day when they're going to go, guess what, you better, we're going to take it off. So the thing is about that is that I started looking up, you know, these cases where young women had died at Dignitas after they'd been sexually abused, after they'd been raped, after they'd been told they had borderline personality disorder, after they were raped and stuff like that. You know, and the stories are fucking heartbreaking. Like, you've got young, very intelligent women who have been raped, they've been sexually abused in childhood. They're really struggling. They are, you know, self-harming and they're very traumatised. And they're saying, I can't do this anymore, I want to die. And I think my main concern is that psychiatrists, 3 psychiatrists have to sign it off and agree, or 2, I think it is, and this is the bit that gets me, that young woman has no reasonable prospect of a good outcome in her life. Like, there's no way she'll get better.
Said, yeah,
they have to agree that in order for them to die. I just cannot imagine thinking that. I can't imagine working with a girl of 19 or 20 and go, do you know what, you've been raped, you've got borderline personality disorder, you've got no real hope left, your life is going to be wank, you may as well just die now. Why not? You know, why bother waiting until you're in your 70s or your 80s to die when you could die now? And I just don't feel that's ethical. I also have a real issue around the narrative that these are mental illnesses that cannot be cured. They are not. They are theories. So if, you know, 2 psychiatrists are going to write a report going, she has this illness of borderline personality disorder, there is no known cure, she will always be mentally ill, and therefore she is terminally ill, and therefore we support, you know, the fact that she wants to kill herself at Dignitas. I just, when it really sunk in, and then I was reading case studies, I was reading about Noah Pavothan, who she died at Dignitas a couple of years back, and she actually documented her final days, you know, and like, because she knew when she was going to die, she knew she was going to go do it, and she was she talked quite openly about the fact that she was sexually abused repeatedly, and she was very traumatized, and that the doctors had told her that you have no hope of getting better. And I just think that's unethical. I just can't imagine ever saying that to a woman. I've worked with women and girls that have been trafficked, who have, you know, they're like, they've literally had their lives destroyed by men who have abused them and harmed them. And I would never dream of being like, that's it now, your life's doomed, you may as well die. So it's just,
I guess,
just
like,
terrifying me.
One of the things you would hope is that professionals wouldn't do that, and that you wouldn't be able to get 1 or 2 psychiatrists to sign that off. But it's happening, and it's happening way more frequent than
increasing.
Than anyone would wish to admit. And am I right in thinking that there is a set of psychiatrists who they recommend you going to get the sign off?
Because they'll sign it off.
Because,
that's right. Dignitas have got a guidance sheet that they give to, you know, young women and girls. Because predominantly the deaths by suicide at Dignitas of young people who have got so-called borderline personality disorder or whatever, they've predominantly been women, like young women. It's not been young men. So they're giving these guidance sheets out to young women, being like, these are the psychiatrists to avoid, these are the ones that you're better off going to because they'll agree to you killing yourself. They've even got guidance in there where they deliberately tell women don't tell the psychiatrist that you're using it for a Dignitas report. So they're actually telling women, go to a psychiatrist, ask them for a full assessment, tell them that it's really serious. Do not tell them you're going to give it to us because they will put it under more scrutiny or whatever. Because, you know, those psychiatrists are putting their name to a report that means you'll die in a few weeks' time. It's fucking... So I thought that even though it's super heavy, and a lot of people who've reviewed the book and read it found that terrifying. I think it had to be included. Like,
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
is death now a treatment for women's mental health after they've been raped by men?
Yeah,
That can't be right.
absolutely.
Not fucking. They won't euthanize rapists, though, will they?
No, exactly.
Because that's inhumane. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking, it's like fucking upside down land.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's just it's really hard, and we've been discussing this for a couple of years now, haven't we?
Yeah.
And still, every time we have these discussions, I'm naturally sort of quite an empath, but I just think about what these women and girls, that they're girls, they're 18 and 19, a lot of them have gone through in their last few days. What were they thinking? Was there a point where they thought maybe this is all wrong? Well, it can't be because all the doctors are telling me
I'm ill.
that it's okay.
Yeah, I know.
And nobody knows what it's like to die.
No, I know.
So
it's a really
how do we even know that it's a humane death? We don't.
No, I know, because I was reading about. See, this is a whole other conversation, but that's how I learned about what I taught you about with morphine.
Yeah.
You know, like technically assisted suicide using morphine.
Yeah.
And that, like, you know, the death that they use at Dignitas for these young women is
potassium.
They use like a very, very, very strong barbiturate. It's, you know, and it basically causes you to go into respiratory arrest and then cardiac arrest, and I just don't. But it's mixed with a really, really deep sedative, so you go sleep first. So you go sleep, then you become unconscious, you go into a coma, and then you have a respiratory arrest and a cardiac arrest. It's fucking terrifying. The more you sort of read about it, and the more you sort of think about the fact that you've got girls at 20, well, women at 18, 19, 20, 21 being like, I can't do this. I'm like, you know, since I've been raped, I can't cope.
And how many of us have felt like that?
Yeah, I know. Everybody that's been raped, I think, has been through that at some point,
Yeah.
on some level. The fact that you've got, see, that's not, so my problem isn't that women and girls want to kill themselves.
Yeah.
It's the fact that 3 fucking doctors will sit there and go, yeah, you're probably right, you may as well just kill yourself. It's probably for the best. You know, there's no point in you trying to have a life because, well, let's be honest, you're not going to have a life, are you? So you may as well die.
Is there do they get funding? Do they get paid for using these? Like, do they pay to use these services?
Yeah. It's a fee.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
pay to use Dignitas. It's not free. It's private.
It's so difficult as well. Which I wanted to come on to this as well. As someone who is left wing, I have always been very, very critical of pharmaceutical companies in any capacity. So I guess it all sort of comes into one when you think about, well, who is making the profit here? Because profits are being made off the back of people's
deep trauma,
and whether it's trauma or ill health. Do you know what I mean? However your perspective, somebody is making money. And when you look at it in comparison to trauma and talking therapies, where the person making the money is a very qualified counsellor, psychotherapist who's maybe earning 30 grand a year as an individual, compared to huge pharmaceutical companies where the CEO is making an absolute fucking mint and they are producing millions of packs of pills each year that cost them 10p, 20p, a pound, whatever. And the money and the way the money is being made is so different. But it's cheaper for, you know, healthcare systems to put you onto these packs of pills than it is to pay 30 grand a year for a psychotherapist.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is capitalist.
Especially considering that a box of antidepressants is worth about 4p, 5p.
But the NHS will have to pay sort of 20 odd quid per pack.
Yeah.
So then there's that. But then also
and
there is a man...
67 million prescriptions of those per year.
Exactly. But there is a man at the top of all of these pharmaceuticals making a ridiculous and disgusting amount of profit.
Yeah.
And they are not doing it ethically. No. It's being done for profit. and that comes into this, doesn't it? That it is cheaper, and it's not only is it cheaper, but they are the people at the top with the most power are earning the most money from this way of the mental health is sort of ran, and from the mental health system. So that is why it's so powerful. It's being run by like powerful, rich pharma companies.
Yeah, of course. The whole system is like, for even the DSM. Even if you come away from medication for a moment, the DSM sells millions of copies every time it gets released.
Yeah,
they're very expensive books, and they only publish it in their own DSM. So you can only get hold of it from them. The American Psychiatric Association sells them, and they make hundreds of millions of dollars every time they release a DSM.
Yeah.
And then they use that to fund the American Psychiatric Association for years to come.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop.
Including the research that they produce that puts out, that claims that
the disorders are real and that they've found another disorder.
Yeah.
So they're funding their own sort of research to then sell a book going, look, we found another disorder. Of course you fucking did.
Yeah.
But hang on a minute, can I just say something before we move on? If you have these conversations, people label you a conspiracy theorist, except all of this stuff is real, and it's like, it's so obvious. You could just go and look it up. Like, go and look up how much the DSM makes every time they sell it. It's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Go
and look up how much these pharmaceutical companies are making from psychoactive medications. It's fucking billions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
Like, this shit, it's not a conspiracy. Just because people don't like it and it's uncomfortable, don't make it a fucking conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's how it works.
Yeah. I guess, like, from my perspective as well, you know, my studies are in politics, and the left wing and the way that the mental health movement has captured the left as, oh, it's really important to care about mental health, and you know, mental health shouldn't be stigmatized. It's captured them and made them friends of big pharma, which historically the left do not support big pharma, because they are making money from people's ill health.
Yeah.
And people's misfortune of ill health.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that did take up a lot of time, but I think it's really important that we do that bit justice.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do you think the trauma-informed approach causes mental health stigma?
No, but I think that's one of the main criticisms of it.
Yeah.
Because, as you just said, there has been a lot of marketing effort that's gone into the whole end mental health stigma and all that flowery shit.
Yeah, and don't pill shame.
Yeah, and pill shaming is such an interesting concept and phrase, because they're making out that if you suggest an alternative and maybe you're not mentally ill, maybe you don't need fucking psychoactive medication for the rest of your life, that you're pill shaming people. There's no shame in the trauma-informed model, because it's anti-shaming and anti-blaming. Yeah. So, it doesn't. But I think people do twist it to look like that. And I get that a lot. People say, you know, you think you're doing a good thing, but all you're doing is creating more stigma for people with mental health issues and diagnoses. I'm fucking not. I'm saying there should be no stigma. The fact that people actually believe that there's already no stigma baffles me. Yeah. The whole psychiatric and mental health system relies on stigma. If you remove the stigma, they've got no treatments or no power. Yeah. You can't diagnose. You can't say to someone, you're being diagnosed with this disorder, but don't worry, it's completely normal and everybody's got it. And because at that point you'd be like, well, it's not a disorder then, is it?
So just to clarify that, just for people who are listening, when a psychiatric diagnosis is something that is supposed to be rare
and abnormal.
And abnormal compared to the rest of society.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So if we argue that psychiatric conditions are common or normal, that's actually like,
well, that just proves
incorrect.
They're not a disorder.
Yeah, it shows that it's sort of what's the phrase? Like it's just not true.
No.
And like
it becomes almost like an oxymoron.
Oxymoron. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, it's like sort of an oxymoron because of what they're based off, right?
Yeah, because you can't say this thing is completely normal and common and there's no stigma attached to it, but also it's a disorder and you're abnormal and here's some pills.
Yeah, because a disorder means to be socially abnormal.
Yeah, or medically abnormal, because you can have medical disorders.
Yeah.
Do you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, you could have a disorder of the bowel, or you could have a disorder of the heart.
Yeah.
Like, because it's abnormal, it is functioning abnormally, and therefore it is harmful to you.
Yeah. Whereas these are all social.
Yeah, they're socially constructed sort of so-called disorders.
Yeah, and everyone is so different. Like, everyone could end up with a label for anything that we make up.
And that's why Joe Watson called it a disorder for everyone.
Yeah.
Because there's fucking a disorder for everyone in the DSM.
Yeah.
You will fit enough criteria for several psychiatric disorders at any one time.
Yeah, anyone
will. And
will.
if you think you don't, you are naive and you've not understood the DSM. You flick through that shit and use it as a tick exercise, and I tell you something now, you'll come out with at least 20 fucking disorders.
And then does that then mean that everybody needs a diagnosis? Everybody then needs to go on pills? Or do you think that actually maybe that's wrong, and maybe it's the system that needs to change, and maybe it's the world that needs to change rather than every individual in it?
They've added caffeine as a psychiatric disorder, caffeine addiction.
Shit, that's me.
So that's like billions and billions of people now with caffeine disorder.
Yeah. Okay. I guess coming off from that, we've sort of spoken about the euthanasia, and to some might say, oh, well, that's quite far-fetched. What about the chemical restraints in the NHS that are used?
That's something that's like exclusive data that's gone into Sexy But Psycho. So I was really lucky that Matthew Morris and Kieran Sturgis contacted me with their NHS data, and they were like, we need someone to take this seriously, and we can't get anyone to listen to us, but we found this data from the NHS throughout 2020 and 2021 that shows that chemical restraint, so what that means, if some of you will know what that means, but some of you won't, a chemical restraint is where you're in a mental health ward and you get like pinned down and injected with a tranquilizer, usually by several members of staff. A tranquilizer will then significantly sedate you or knock you out, sometimes for 12 hours, sometimes 18, sometimes 24, and they are used to chemically restrain people on those wards. So what Kieran and Matthew had come to me and said was, we have noticed that in all mental health wards in the UK, even though males and females in mental health wards are actually almost perfectly split in half, so in terms of proportion of sex in the wards, they're at like, I think it's like 50.8% versus like 49.2%. It's almost perfectly split. So bear that in mind as I'm about to say this, that women are given on average 3 to 4 times more non-consensual injected tranquilizers than men and boys. But when you break it down to age range, it's teenage girls under the age of 18 being given 7 times more tranquilizers than any other group. So that means, just to put it in perspective, that of all the women and girls under 18 that are currently in a psychiatric facility in the UK, they will be given, well, not given, they'll be forced to have a chemical restraint tranquilizer injected into them at least once per week per child, like per girl. And that's 7 times more than the other groups. Now, my argument around that is why? Because you're not telling me that a fucking 13-year-old girl's more dangerous than a fucking 30-year-old man in these wards. We also know that the majority of attacks on NHS staff are done by men. So what in the fuck are they chemically restraining that many teenage girls for?
Yeah, absolutely. I
have a real issue with this, and not to mention the fact that so many women and girls who have actually been chemically restrained, it is a trauma every time you do it to them. You're going to fucking pin them down and fucking inject them with something. They're going to be fucking terrified.
And then they're going to be knocked out for that long. How do they know what's happened to them?
They fucking don't.
If these girls have been through trauma, you know, a lot of them will have been raped and sexually abused. What are they going to think has happened to them when you've chemically restrained them? What are they, when they wake up, what are they going to think has happened? And then that in itself, if they then are like, do not chemically restrain me, don't sedate me, they'll be like, oh, she's protesting, like she's resisting it. She's even more mentally ill.
Do you know what always gets me as well? You can't do that to prisoners.
No.
So you got fucking men in prison that have killed and raped people, are fucking dangerous, stabbing each other up on the wings, but you can't fucking chemically restrain them.
Really? I didn't know that.
Who would be around to do that? Prison officers can't fucking jab you with a trank, can they?
Yeah, that's true.
So, but you can do it to like girls that are on a mental health ward because they've been self-harming because they were abused.
Yeah.
So you can fucking and on top of all of this, sorry, I just want to say something. The men, when you look at the data, because they sent me this like raw data set, when you look at the men around the types of restraints they use when men do get aggressive or out of control, whatever it is, however you want to describe it, in men and boys they use seclusion. So they go and put them in a room until they calm down. So if men are like kicking off and getting all leery on the mental health wards, they use physical restraint, i.e. physically restraining them to calm them down, right? And then they go put them in seclusion, which is like 40 or 50% of all restraints they're using. Whereas the women and girls, it's like 80 to 90% is just jabbing them with a trank.
Oh my God.
Like that, like, how is that? You're not telling me that it's easier to manhandle a bloke into seclusion that's kicking off than a fucking teenage girl.
Yeah.
It's just, honestly, the whole thing. I'm glad I put it in the book because people fucking need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like something that's so common as well. And the data shows that it's common. Yeah. But there's a lot more that you go into in the book in that, and it's really, really interesting. So I wish we had more time to talk about it, but we just end up talking about the whole book. And there's some other things that I want to come on to. So you have spoken a lot about why you don't believe feminism is compatible with psychiatry. Do you want to go into some ideas around that, some of your opinions, where the opinions have come from?
To be honest with you, if you research the history of psychology, the mental health movement and psychiatry, the entire thing for hundreds of years has been about locking up women, killing women, harming women, performing frontal lobotomies on them, mass womb extractions, forcing them to have sex with men to cure their mental illness, torturing lesbians and bisexual women. Like, I don't know how you could support it. I don't know how you could be a feminist and be like, I'm pro-psychiatry, psychiatry is the answer, and psychiatry is good for women and girls. Fucking is not. Like, it's a system of oppression that still exists to this day. You are more likely to be diagnosed with a borderline personality disorder if you're a bisexual or lesbian woman. Yeah. You're 7 times more likely to be diagnosed if you are, interestingly, bisexual, even rather than lesbian. And that's because as a bisexual woman, you contradict a fuck ton of norms. Yeah. Like, if you're, sleeping with women and men, or you're in relationships with men and women, you're a problem to the patriarchy. You can't do that. And so you're much more likely to be diagnosed as being mentally ill because they claim that you have identity issues that you won't resolve, right? And so I just don't think that our feminism is compatible. And I really don't like the way that feminists call each other psychiatric terms. Yeah. They're like, oh, you're a narcissist. You're delusional. You're manic. You're obviously bipolar. Oh, I don't like her. She has a fucking personality disorder. What in the fuck are you doing? Yeah. You're playing right into the hands of the patriarchy. Yeah. Like, what are you doing calling another woman insane?
What about when we use psychiatry and psychiatric conditions to get women, sort of prevent them from facing criminal charges or get them out of criminal charges that they're already facing?
I have a real, I guess, personal and unique view on that, and it's not very common. So, as a radical feminist, you're kind of supposed to I don't know why it happens in radical feminism, but like women commit serious crime and everyone falls all over them, like, oh, it's not her fault. She had a really difficult childhood. I don't give a shit. Like, if I'm sorry, but I think it's misogynistic to suggest that a woman is not capable of committing serious crime. Women want to murder people. Women want to sexually assault. Women want to kill their kids. Yeah. Like, why would you want to reframe her as some fucking fragile little flower that didn't mean it and is mentally ill? But also,
the difference is that we just don't as much.
Yeah, no, it's much more interesting the fact that women are actually capable of committing very serious violent crimes. They just don't do it. So your interest should be, why don't women use their power like that? Because they don't. But anyway, my other issue with that would be, if you're going to not allow a man to use mental health as a reason why he raped and killed somebody, why are you fucking letting a woman do it? Unless it's misogyny. You're suggesting that the only way a woman can be violent is if she's mentally ill. I just don't like the whole narrative around it. So I think if a woman has clearly committed a very, very violent act, and killed somebody or assaulted somebody or like trafficked, like women traffic women.
Yeah.
You know, women like...
Yeah, in the work that we do, we've I've found in some recent research that a lot of pimps are also women.
Yeah, of course they are.
I mean, of course, some of them are
are victims themselves, but some of them aren't.
But some of them, yeah,
they're fucking rich white women that traffic and sell.
Yeah,
like sort of disadvantaged or marginalised women.
Yeah, it's not as common, nowhere near as common, but it does happen.
Yeah, it does. And like, so my issue there is, why are you reframing her as this vulnerable, mentally ill woman that needs help? Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, and I just think the whole thing's misogynistic, to be honest with you. Like, I don't have any interest in it. I don't like the way that, you know, you've got like, for example, you might have like a woman on death row who's like violently killed somebody, and you've got like feminists going, oh, it's not her fault, she had a really rough childhood. Fucking so.
Yeah.
She still chose to fucking murder.
All of us had really rough childhoods.
Yeah. You wouldn't let a man say that.
No, exactly.
So yeah, no.
Okay, we've not got that much time left again, but I've just got a few more questions that we're going to try and get through. So what changes have you already started to create to challenge the psychiatric system and psychiatric ways of working?
I do question this a lot, and I do get reminded like by people around me, but I do think I'm already creating a lot of change on social media. I think that a lot of women are already understanding the difference and what I'm saying. But in terms of systems and institutions, we're working with a lot of police forces at the moment, and I influenced the national strategy for policing around the forces becoming trauma-informed and trauma-aware, which we're now working on with many forces to help them become more trauma-informed, to stop pushing women and girls through psychiatric assessment when they've been raped or abused, and stop referring those women and girls to fucking mental health teams just because they're like really distressed that they've been abused or raped or whatever, because police need to understand that if they then get those psychiatric diagnoses on file thinking it'll help the victim in some way,
they don't get conviction in court.
No, they won't, because the defence barrister will go, well, she's fucking crazy. Which is very, very common. So we're helping in that way. We've been commissioned to develop an alternative to CAMS. Yeah. Like a trauma-informed service for teenage girls who've been sexually exploited and trafficked. We are developing a completely like non-medical version, and then we're going to test it over 5 years and see whether it works. Yeah. So
I once saw someone say, it's just about CAMS, that it actually stands for can't actually help, mate, sorry. And then the final question that I've got is, what are the top 3 things you want people to take from this book?
Okay. Top 3 things. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
The first one I think we've already discussed, which is that I think feminism and women's rights movement needs to reject psychiatry and the mental health movement, and I think that's absolutely vital. And you cannot go forward as a feminist and with your women's rights work if you're going to support the psychiatric diagnosis of thousands and thousands of women and girls a year, where they're medicated with medicine that will harm their body and their brain. Yeah. Also as a feminist, you should reject the use of ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, of which 68% of that is used on women.
And a lot of that is in the book.
Yeah, it is.
You'll be very surprised how many.
There's a lot of discussion around ECT and so on. But outside of divorcing feminism from psychiatry, one of the things I really, really want to see is an appeal process for women who've got these fucking shitty diagnoses, because they're so difficult to get off. Yeah. Why are they so difficult to get off?
Well, because if you go to doctor say, I don't have this disorder,
they'll be like, yeah, you do.
That's proof that you do. Yeah. It's like the whole, the more you say you're not crazy, the more you look crazy.
Yeah. So I want to create an appeal system. I think women should be able to go to their doctors and say, right, 17 years ago you said I had borderline personality disorder because I'd been raped and I'd ran away from my ex-boyfriend and this had happened and this had happened, and I don't want that diagnosis on my file anymore. It's being used to discriminate against me, and I don't think it's fair. I also don't want to take his meds anymore, and you need to now help me safely taper off them. Yeah. I don't want this anymore. And I think the doctor should then have to say, okay, I respect your choice and I'm going to help you safely taper off those medications and make sure you've got support, right? So that is something that I want to happen. The second thing that I want to happen is that if you're in any type of process as a woman or girl and someone is pushing you for a psychiatric assessment, I think you should be able to have an advocate there.
Yeah.
I think you should have to be able to have a trauma-informed advocate, almost like having a solicitor next to you. So when they're pushing you and going, well, when was the last time you felt sad? And like, well, don't you think that might be delusional? Or isn't that to do with your childhood? Or, you know, maybe you've got a personality disorder. You should be able to have a trained advocate there, which is something I'm going to create. This is something Victim Focus is going to create. I want a trained advocate there that can step in and go, sorry, that's not what the evidence base says.
Yes.
So that's not correct.
Yeah.
Or like, no, I'm sorry, but that's victim blaming.
Yeah.
And that's not a correct way of, you know, diagnosing her or whatever, you know. I think you should be able to have an advocate there. And so that's something that I want to see too. I also want to challenge the NHS to fucking have a think about what they're spending their money on.
Yeah.
The NHS is strapped as fuck already, but it's spending billions of pounds a year on fucking psychoactive medications that clearly are not working.
Yeah.
So why don't you think about reinvesting even a portion of that money on therapy and other alternative ways of helping people?
Yeah.
And I also want, which is something we're going to get to do because we've spoken to the World Health Organization about... I know we have. Flex. The World Health Organization agree with us, which is amazing.
Yep.
And one of the things we want to do is change the training of nurses and doctors. They have to be trained differently. They cannot all be told that these people are just mentally ill and it's an illness in their brain.
Yeah.
Like, this is not acceptable. It's 2022. What the fuck? We need to make some change.
Yeah.
Psychiatry has had too much power for too long. It needs to end.
Yeah. Yeah. I think within all that as well, you know, that's a whole system of how this would change. But at the moment, people are having to get these psychiatric labels in order to receive any kind of help.
And that's what I mean
And
about
the
NHS needs to change, because the NHS is propping this up, because you get these gatekeeping systems where they're like, if you don't accept the diagnosis, you can't get the therapy.
Yeah.
Or worse, if you don't go on these pills before the therapy, you can't start therapy because you have to be stabilised by pills.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Or even like more basic stuff than that, like getting help at uni or getting help with your benefits or anything like that, and having to have a letter from a psychiatrist or a doctor to help prove that, which is ridiculous. Okay, we are pretty much out of time, and I think we've pretty much covered everything that we wanted to now.
I've really enjoyed just talking to you about it. This is don't tell the rest of the press, but these have been my favourite interviews.
I am your wife, and I am sitting here in not a lot of clothes whilst we are talking about this. So like, I hope that it's your favourite one.
That's so inappropriate.
Well, I am your wife.
I know, but that's not why I've enjoyed the interview, baby. I've enjoyed it because I've been able to, like, I don't know.
I know, but we're chilled and we're
comfy.
comfy.
Yeah, I am much comfy. I am cuddled up talking to you.
So yeah, buy the book.
Please go and buy the book. We have... Stop doing your percussion.
It's ASMR.
It's what?
ASMR.
Oh, God. Yeah, go and support the book, because we have to create change, and the only way I'm going to do that is if we have enough support.
Yeah.
And the only way I can do that is by it getting out to as many people as possible, which is tough in itself.
And once you've got it, tweet about it, post pictures of it.
Yeah, post pictures of it, because the front cover is fucking great.
Yeah, the front cover is gorgeous, and it'd look really good on your bookshelf.
Yep, it'll look good everywhere. I was thinking about giving out loads of free copies, so maybe we should do a competition at some point and really push it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, I really appreciate you all listening to it. Like, I know that these have been some really serious episodes, and I hope you kind of feel like you've learned something interesting, and you can go away and have these conversations, because one of the ways that you can help cause systemic change is by going out and having these conversations with other women and girls.
Yeah.
There are so many women and girls around you right now that all think they're mentally ill.
Yeah.
And they think that they've got a disorder for life and that they'll have it forever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, nobody's talking to them about their trauma. Nobody cares. Nobody's asking them if they're okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking them what happened to them. Everyone's just telling them they got fucking OCD and PTSD and bipolar and BPD and MPD and fucking GAD and
the wandering womb syndrome.
Yeah.
Which is what it all comes back to.
I know.
So yeah, go buy it on Amazon. Amazon's probably the easiest one. If you don't like Amazon, Solidarity, and get it from Waterstones, probably, or Blackwell's, or any of the others.
Barnes and Noble, WH Smith, or independent books or
Yeah,
bookshops.
if you've got
go and
independent
get
ones,
it from
get
an
them from there.
indie. Indie bookshops need your business. You can go get it from them.
But post pictures.
Yeah, please.
And thank you.
Thank you
Here's
so
some more
much for
ASMR.
listening. You're so weird.
Wait.
You're so weird, baby. Right, signing off.